All right, hello everyone. I think we're live. I think we are rocking. We should be up and running good. Hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of the live chat. As always, it is so good to be here. It is so good to see everyone. Hello today, right? What is the big news? What is the big stuff worth talking about? We've got several. This is our first live chat since last week's January NPD data came out. So we can talk about that, right? We can talk about the results for January NPD. Yesterday, of course, there was a pretty huge Nintendo Direct. A lot of mixed opinions about it, right? I saw some Nintendo fans that really liked it. I saw some people that absolutely hated it. I felt somewhere kind of like right in the middle. I scored it like, if I was going to grade it, I would say it was like a C plus. I didn't think it was a terrible show. I thought there was actually definitely some interesting announcements, some interesting reveals there. But I didn't think it was a home run, but I also didn't think it was terrible. It was just okay, right? The C plus is like a passing grade. So that's kind of what I would give that show. I think a lot of people wanted to see a lot more considering how long it's been since there was a big Nintendo Direct. So I think people's expectations were pretty high. And I think for some people, Nintendo did not meet that, but I didn't think it was a terrible show either. So, but there were some announcements there we can go over in terms of Nintendo's lineup. What is it going to mean, for them over the next year or two in terms of video game releases? How do we think some of these games that were announced, like Splatoon 3 or Skyward Sword HD, how are they going to sell? Another big topic is going to possibly be Bungie, who just came out today with some pretty crazy stuff. I'm going to read that for you really quick. They're undergoing a massive, major studio expansion, okay? So Bungie, the creators of Halo and also Destiny, they just announced today that they are expanding their home location, right? Their Washington studio. It's going from 84,000 square feet to 208,000 square feet. That is massive, right? They're more than doubling their studio space. They're going to open their first international studio in Amsterdam. Now that studio is going to be more focused on marketing and publishing more than actual development, but that's still an expansion, right? Getting a new marketing team up and building up over in Europe. That's very cool to see. And then probably the most interesting thing here for gamers, Bungie has announced they are aggressively staffing up for 2 different teams. They're going to have one team that's going to be focused on Destiny and the future of the Destiny brand. And then they're also going to have a second team devoted to kind of building up new projects. And then they also stated that they will have their new IP launching by 2025. Could be before that, right? They didn't say it's coming for sure that year. They just said it's going to be here by 2025. So at the latest, we're going to have a brand new IP from Bungie by then. So pretty big news from Bungie there. We can talk about what it means for them, what they could be up to, what does it mean for Destiny, etc. And there was a new Mortal Kombat trailer today that just came out. There's new rumors about Silent Hill. We can talk about that. We can talk about tons. So basically the way this show works, if this is your first time ever being part of the chat, you just drop your comments, you drop your questions down into chat, and I get to as many as possible. There's 2 ways to do it. First of all, there's the free method, right? You just type a question, hit enter, and it pops into chat. I hit as many free questions as absolutely possible per chat. However, if you do want to guarantee that you get your question answered, that is what the super chat option is there for. You just type in a donation of whatever you want. It will alert me to that super chat, and super chats get priority, right? I hit those questions first because that's what you pay for. But don't feel obligated to do it. I do also hit as many free questions as possible. It just depends on the size of the chat in terms of how many questions I can get to. I already see a bunch of questions dropping. I already see super chats dropping. My volume's low. Okay, people are saying my volume's low. Let me adjust this. Let me adjust my volume here. Check. Is my volume still low? Can you let me know in chat? Let me pull up OBS really quick. Check. Okay, I have it turned up in OBS, but I'm turning up my mic. Does that sound louder? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Check, check. Can chat let me know if my volume has gone up? Can you let me know really quick before I start diving into questions? How is the volume? Anybody? Anybody, please answer in chat so I can start rocking questions on how the volume sounds. I'm not seeing any replies popping up. Okay, Timmer's saying seems fine. Hopefully the volume's good. I don't want to spend too long on this, just dead air. Timmer's the only one saying it seems fine. I'm not sure. Hopefully everyone else can hear me. If not, I am sorry. I'm going to really quick break down NPD. And then sounds the same. It's not for me, but I can still hear. Interesting. I'll be honest with y'all. I have no idea why volume's low. I have no idea. Check, 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 check. Is that any better? No change. Okay. Check, 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 check. Check, check. I have no idea. Always having issues on the chat, right? Always. It would not be a Benji-Sales live chat without issues. It's just not possible. Okay, so I gave JCat moderation really quick, just as a heads up before I go into your questions. JCat's been a long time member of the chat. Since the beginning, I gave JCat mod abilities as well. Just because, you know, sometimes in chat we do get a few trolls. Everyone's saying better now, sweet, better now, it's good now, awesome, glad to hear that. So yes, JCat has now got mod abilities as well as Split End 89. Just to help out, make things better, make sure we don't get any trolls in here. So congrats to JCat. Thank you for all you do. Okay. Enough with the dead air time. Sorry about all this. Okay. All right. So let me really quick give you the January NPD recap so we have context. And then I'm going to dive into questions, everyone. Okay. So for January NPD, Switch was the #1 selling platform by units, and it also broke the record for the biggest January this generation. That's what I had predicted in my last live chat, right? Literally the live chat before January came out, people asked me my expectations. I said that's what I was expecting to see, and that is exactly what happened. So yes, Switch #1 selling by units. PS5 had a great result as well, though. PS5 was #1 in revenue, and it was the highest January in revenue since 2009. Okay, so that is a great result for PS5 as well. So it looks like really good stuff for Switch in terms of units, and very good result for PS5 in terms of just how much money it is generating. Then to look at the overall top 20, I'm going to go through these really quick, and then questions are up next. #1 best-selling game of the month, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Cold War has now been the best-selling game every single month since it came out. So it was #1 in November, #1 in December, and #1 in January. So my goodness, Call of Duty just does not stop, right? It is just an absolute beast. #2, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Excellent legs for Valhalla, right? That game came out in November, and it is still #2. So great to see that. Spider-Man Miles Morales at #3. Again, another game that is showing fantastic legs. Spider-Man Miles Morales has been top 5 every month since it came out. So that game is also doing spectacularly well. Madden NFL 21 is at #4. Animal Crossing New Horizons #5. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe #6. Ring Fit Adventure #7. Call of Duty Modern Warfare #8. Smash Bros #9. NBA 2K21 #10. Super Mario 3D All-Stars #11. FIFA 21 #12. Immortals Phoenix Rising #13. Mortal Kombat 11 #14. Just Dance 21 #15. And we're almost done here. Breath of the Wild at #16. Minecraft at #17. Cyberpunk 2077 at number 18, Mario Party number 19, and UFC 4 making a surprise appearance up at number 20. So that is your top 20 there. You will notice that Hitman 3 is not there. Don't be alarmed by that. Hitman 3 had no digital in NPD, zero. IO Interactive does not share digital with NPD. So that doesn't just mean its PC sales are basically completely missing out of this list, but they actually don't even share console digital as well. And Hitman 3 is a game that I feel probably sold like 90% of its units digitally, right? It doesn't appear to have a very large physical shipment, and that game is kind of tied into 1 and 2 in terms of you can import your levels and things like this from the original. So people that had already bought Hitman digitally would probably just buy Hitman 3 digitally as well. We already know that game made its money back, so I would not be alarmed by Hitman not being there, because like I said, digital is completely missing, and that was probably the vast majority of Hitman sales, even more than a normal game. Hitman was probably even higher than normal on its digital split. Okay, everyone, that is my big headlines. Start dropping every question you've got down into chat so I can start getting to them, and let's start rocking. We have 2 super chats right off the bat. Plastic Hearts Podcast with a $10 super chat saying, Benji boy, what is up, Plastic Hearts? And thank you for the super chat. Any sales data currently on Fall Guys? I can't imagine how well it's going to do on Switch. What a perfect fit. Also want to bet a pizza we get Breath of the Wild 2 in our hands before God of War Ragnarok. All right, so 2 very interesting things here. In terms of Fall Guys, we know out of the gate, it was a monster, right? It was putting up gigantic numbers on PC in terms of concurrent users, did huge sales numbers on there. We know it was a ginormous launch on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation Plus, right? It was hugely successful out of the gate there as well, putting up giant numbers on both. It was the fastest selling game Devolver Digital has ever published. So out of the gate, Fall Guys, gigantic success. However, it does appear that that game's momentum has slowed, right? If you look at the Steam concurrent numbers, if you look at just like kind of the numbers it does on social metrics, it does not appear that Fall Guys has been able to maintain the crazy momentum it had, you know, at launch. That doesn't mean that Fall Guys just like bombed and it's not selling anything anymore. It just means it's not like, I mean, it was a beast, right? When Fall Guys first came out, it was dominating headlines everywhere. It has not been able to keep that up, right? It's not like I would say like a Fortnite or an Among Us even, where it was huge, but it just keeps going and going and going and being ginormous for months or years. It does seem like it peaked and it dropped down into a valley. However, adding these new platforms, right? We know Switch, we know it's coming to Xbox now as well. They just announced that today. I think that's going to really help give it another upswing in units. And yeah, Switch in particular, I could see it being very successful on. I agree with you. I could see Switch actually being bigger platform for it than Xbox. The install base is going to be bigger, right? Switch has sold more units than Xbox. And then also, I just think the style fits. I think it's a nice multiplayer game to have on the go, handheld. So yeah, I agree. I could see Fall Guys doing very, very well on Switch. I absolutely think so. Look at how good Among Us has been, right? Among Us was like the #1 selling game on Switch for a long time once it came out, until Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury knocked it off the pedestal. But look how big Among Us was. I feel like Fall Guys is going to do very well there as well. And in terms of bet a pizza, if we get Breath of the Wild 2 in our hands before God of War Ragnarok, you know, I think that Breath of the Wild 2 probably got delayed. I don't think it's going to be this year anymore. And I think God of War Ragnarok's also going to be delayed. So it is an interesting bet, Plastic Hearts. I felt that Breath of the Wild 2 was going to be a 2021 game until this Nintendo Direct, right? And basically they showed zero on it. They showed absolutely nothing. And then I noticed that the producer for the Legend of Zelda series, he said they should be able to show more this year. He did not say will. That is, I think, a key. I saw some reporting saying, oh, they're definitely going to, and I do think they're going to show it this year. But the fact he said should gives them wiggle room. He did not flat out say, we are 100% going to show you Breath of the Wild 2 this year. He said they should be able to. That tells me that it's still not a lock. And if it's not even a 100% lock that it's going to be shown, that makes it very hard for me to believe that it's actually going to release this year. So that is going to be very interesting. My hunch is that both of these games now are going to probably be spring 2022. I hope I'm wrong, right? I want both of these games this year. I will be ecstatic if both of these games hit this year, but I think it's increasingly unlikely that it's going to happen. So that is an interesting bet. I could see them being very close. You know what's crazy, Plastic Hearts? I wouldn't even be shocked if these come out in the same month. I would not be shocked at all. We know Ragnarok is slated currently still for 2021, but I think a lot of us are doubting that. If it gets pushed, God of War tends to like that early in the year release, right? That April-ish time frame. We saw Breath of the Wild 1 launch in March. So these could be very close, even potentially the same month. So that is going to be an interesting race to watch, Plastic Hearts. Thank you for the super chat. And honestly, I'm not sure which one I would predict is going to come first. I honestly don't know. I think their release time frame could possibly be very, very close. Timmer72299 with a massive super chat. 50 from Timmer. Holy goodness, Timmer. That is absolutely ridiculous. You are one of the biggest supporters of me and my channel. Thank you so much, Timmer. Thank you for being amazing every single week. And a 50 super chat is just outrageous. And Timmer's asking, hi, Benji, if the private equity holder in Zenimax never invested in the company in 2007/2010, but instead invested in 38 Studios, Kurt Schilling's company, how would the gaming landscape look? They changed their minds back in 2011 with regards to 38. So for anyone that wants to read this, Timmer dug up a very interesting report on this. It is on his Twitter. So you can just go to Timmer's Twitter and read the full thing. I'm going to pull out an excerpt from it because basically what I found reading this, Timmer, is that private equity holder, which was, trying to remember the name of them. But anyways, the main thing I came away with is, wow, they were smart, okay? They were smart. Like, when you read this, they do a very great analysis of the industry, and they basically say that 38 Studios is way risky, and they're surprised that Rhode Island is giving Kurt Schilling this kind of money, considering they have no proven track record, and also that Kurt Schilling was trying to build like a big ambitious online game. And instead, they were going to put their money, not like what Rhode Island did, but they were going to put their money to someone more proven like Zenimax. I'll tell you what, that's someone that did great research, okay? That is someone that did great research because as we all know, 38 Studios ended up becoming a complete disaster, failure, okay? They did release Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning, which I really like, and I think a lot of people really liked that game. But the main goal of that studio was basically to have a Kingdoms of Amalur MMO RPG, right? Not that single player thing, but a big, ambitious MMO. That never happened. They burned through their money, closed the studio, all kinds of drama. And then look at what's happened with Zenimax instead, right? Instead, Zenimax goes on to become incredibly successful, sell for billions of dollars. So, dude, this private equity firm, they did their research and they did it well. So shout out to them for investing in the right people instead of the wrong people. And how would it be if it was different, you know? I mean, they would be hurting, right? They would have lost a lot of freaking money. Everyone who invested into 38 lost a ton of freaking money. Kurt Schilling himself, right, lost a ton of money over that. So shout out to them. They made the right investment, paid off in the long haul. One thing that I thought was interesting about that excerpt too, Timmer, is how they said how volatile gaming is and it's dangerous to invest in. And I think that was definitely true at the time. I actually think it's less true nowadays. I think enough gaming companies are stable and successful that it's a much more worth your while to invest now than it was back then. You know, there's still risks, right? Especially I would say if you go into like 38 was, an unproven or smaller studio, that's going to be a lot more risky, a lot more dangerous type thing to do. But the big players, right? The EAs, the Activisions, the Ubisofts, the Take-Twos, the Microsofts, the Sonys, like they are stable enough and they have such a proven record now. And the way that the gaming landscape has changed with like back library and continuous selling games for years and years and years, I think it's much more stable now. So if I was private equity, I would be less scared now than I was back then to invest. But yeah, shout out to them. They made the right choice. Absolutely. And Timmer, I hope you're doing well. I saw you tested positive for COVID. Hope you're doing well, Timmer. We all are rooting for you to have an easy go of it and recover great. So I hope you're doing well, buddy. Plastic Hearts Podcast here with a 5 super chat saying, being reported Konami has outsourced a Silent Hill project to a prominent Japanese developer. Reveal is this summer. Remake, new entry, thoughts. So Plastic Hearts Podcast, this is one of the rare occurrences where I can't talk too much because I actually know what's going on with Silent Hill. Like I actually do. Like, kind of. It's rare, right? I'm not someone that considers myself an insider. Like, I hear inside info sometimes, but I have a pretty solid idea about what's going on with Silent Hill, and I can't talk too much about it, to be honest with you. I'm not a leaker type person, and I don't want to burn any bridges, but that is one that, yeah, I pretty much know what's going on with Silent Hill. So, here's what I can say. Let me think how I can phrase this. Okay, if what I have heard is likely, man, how do I phrase this? Okay, I think people might be somewhat surprised about what gets shown when it does. I think people might be surprised, to be honest. I don't think many people are expecting what's actually going on. So that's all I can say. I really can't say more than that, Plastic Hearts. Thank you for the super chat. Every time I do this insider stuff, it always gets me in trouble. People blow it up, and and it goes crazy. But I do have some inside information on Silent Hill, so I think people might be surprised. I think people might be surprised by it. That's all I'll say. All right, JCat with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, JCat. Nintendo didn't actually mention Zelda 35th anniversary during the Direct. I think there will be a separate Direct with more info. What do you think? I agree, JCat, and thank you for the super chat, and thank you for helping out with modding as well, along with Split and the best mod in the business. So I agree with you, JCat. I did notice that. They never specifically pointed out the 35th anniversary. Yes, they had that small Zelda segment right at the end of the video, but they didn't go into like super details or you know, show a bunch of Zelda stuff. It was really just talking about mostly Skyward Sword HD, right? They passingly mentioned Breath of the Wild 2, but it was basically just saying, hey, we don't have anything to show. So I agree. I think their plan right now, as long as everything goes okay, right? As long as COVID doesn't mess stuff up, as long as the pandemic, you know, this is still a volatile situation with COVID. I feel like, and I don't want to get overly optimistic, but I do feel like the worst is behind us now with COVID. If you look at the worldwide trends, they are going down. The vaccine rollout does seem to be increasing. So I feel like a lot of companies and a lot of businesses are starting to feel like, okay, we're not done by any means, but hopefully the worst is behind us, right? Hopefully we're at least on the other side of it. So hopefully, fingers crossed, right? That's good for everyone. It's good for lives. It's as good for everything, right? Business, whatever you want to say. No matter what, getting past the pandemic is a huge plus. And I don't think we're going to be back to quote, quote, normal in 2 months. But you get what I'm getting at. I think the absolute very worst is probably behind us now. So I think Nintendo's plan, as long as everything goes solid, is that, yeah, there's probably going to be a Zelda-focused Direct later. And that's probably where they were talking about they should be able to show more of Breath of the Wild 2 later this year. My guess also, there's reporting out of VGC that Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD are coming this year, even though they only talked about Skyward Sword. Apparently, those two are on the way as well. So my guess, JCat, everything goes good. Later this year, we have a Zelda Direct. They show Breath of the Wild 2. They announce Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD for Switch, etc. Celebrate the 35th. Maybe do some other cool stuff, tie-ins as well. But yes, I agree, JCat. Probably a Zelda-focused Direct later. Okay. Super chats are out of the way. Thank you so much for all those super chats, everyone. I'm going to start jumping into free questions. Costas here saying, "Hi Benji, do you think Ratchet and Clank has the potential to become a 10 million seller per game franchise in the future?" It's an interesting question, Kostas. Here's a few things we know, right? We know that Ratchet and Clank for PS4, the reboot, right, was actually Insomniac's like most successful launch, or at least I can't remember the exact wording. I would have to go back and look at it. But it was either most successful launch, or it was like it was tracking to be their best-selling game before Spider-Man, okay? So before Spider-Man PS4 came out, which of course blew everything else out of the water, Ratchet and Clank on PS4, the reboot, did extremely well for them. I think it was like on track to be the best-selling Ratchet and Clank game. So the franchise was already headed towards an upswing. Then you have Rift Apart, which I think looks excellent, right? I've seen a lot of people that aren't even normally interested in Ratchet and Clank saying that they think that Rift Apart looks great, right? I think it has a big advantage of being one of the few true next-gen only exclusives right now, right? By the time it comes out here in June, there's not going to be a whole lot of next-gen only games on either Xbox Series X or PS5, right? There are a few. We do have Demon's Souls. We do have The Medium. We do have Returnal by then. So you do have a few, but you don't have tons, right? It's not like there's like, 50 next-gen only games out by now. So people with PS5s, that's going to get you very excited to pick up Ratchet and Clank. Here's a game completely developed for just my PS5. It's really taking advantage of the hardware. It's going to be a great showpiece early in the life cycle. So I think Rift Apart is going to be the best-selling Ratchet and Clank game ever. I really think so. I think it's going to be the biggest launch ever for the franchise, the best-selling in the franchise long-term. That install base is going to need to build up before it can just sell a bajillion units, right? Even by the time we hit June, the PS5 install base isn't going to be giant, especially with shortages. But I do think there's going to be enough PS5s out there to get it to the biggest launch, and I think it'll have good legs. So 10 million, I'm not sure if it can hit that or not. It might. That's a pretty big milestone. 10 million is a lot of units, okay? That's a hefty spot to hit. But I do feel confident at the very least that Rift Apart, unless it's like a disastrously bad game, which I think it looks amazing, so no way. I think it's going to be the most successful Ratchet and Clank game. Yep, I think it's going to be the most successful one yet. Batwing saying, "Hello there, Benji. Do you think Spider-Man 2 from Insomniac will be delayed out of 2022 to 2023 because of COVID? And if so, when do you expect Spider-Man 3 to release? 2026? It's a good question, Batwing. 2022 is looking tough to me for Spidey. I don't think it's impossible yet, right? That's still 2 years out. And we know, depending on when it would launch. But I think we would all expect Spidey 2 to be late in the year, right? Aren't we all expecting that? If you look at Miles Morales, that was a November game. If you look at the first Spider-Man, that was a September game. So towards the end of the calendar year as well, right? I think we're all kind of expecting Spider-Man 2, whenever it releases, to probably be a fall game. Probably not going to be early. So if we're looking at fall 2022... you basically still have all of 2021 because we're at the beginning of the year here, and then a big chunk of 2022 for development. So nearly 2 years of development left. We know that Spider-Man 2 started development before Miles Morales even came out, right? So you're going to be able to add on development there as well, because the Miles Morales team was almost separate from Spidey. There were people from Spider-Man 1, of course, that worked on Spider-Man Miles Morales, but there was also a core group from Spider-Man 1 that directly went into Spider-Man 2, while other people started working on Miles Morales. So it is going to have a pretty hefty development time by the time you hit 2022. I mean, probably about 4 years-ish. Insomniac is a very, very well-run studio. I mean, they run like a well-oiled machine. So I would say 2022 isn't out of the question yet for Spidey 2, but it could be 2023. Yeah, basically a lot of teams lost at least 6-ish months of development time because of COVID. Some more, some a little less. Really just depends on the team. But it definitely had an impact. So I would say 2023 is possible, but I would not rule 2022 out yet. I still think that that's in play, especially with how good Insomniac is at developing games. And Spider-Man 3, yeah, that's probably going to be, yeah, I mean, years after that, right? Another 3 to 4 years after that. So it just depends on the time frame. But 2026, I would say, yeah, probably makes sense, somewhere around there. Yoda Soda saying, Benji, when do you expect the PS6 to drop? Ooh, fun question. 2025. Could the PS5 last 5 years, or do you think it will last 7 like the PS4 and PS3? Yoda Soda, I am expecting this to be an extremely long generation. Actually, very long. I think that COVID by itself has extended the life range of this console generation. These consoles are not going to get off to as quick of a pace, I don't think, as either Sony or Microsoft expected from shortages, okay? Now, that doesn't mean they're doing bad. They're both selling like crazy. They're selling every single unit they ship. But all of that said, you are still limited for at least months still on that install base. Sony has openly said it. Microsoft has openly said it. AMD has openly said it. These shortages are going to last until summer at the minimum. And by summer, I mean, depending on what area of the world you live in, it might not be summer for you, but until at least like June. Okay. That's what basically everyone's saying, whether it's Sony, Microsoft, or even AMD, who's the one making the parts. We still have months and months and months of shortages ahead of us. So, I mean, I am not expecting this to be a quick generation at all, especially because these consoles launched with nice CPUs, good SSDs. I think you're going to be able to push nice frame rates out of these for quite some time, no matter what. Devs have not been able to take tons of full advantage of these consoles yet because of delays and development and working at home. So Yoda Soda, this is not going to be a quick generation, not by any means. I would expect this to at least be the same length as last gen. At least, honestly, at least. So 5 years, no. I think probably, yeah, that 6, 7, maybe even 8, depending on if we do mid-gen refreshes or not. This is not going to be a fast generation. Not at all. Costas, do you think Horizon Zero Dawn 2 Forbidden West has potential to match Assassin's Creed Valhalla in sales? I think Morales outsold Valhalla on PS4 and PS5, at least in the US, so can Horizon Forbidden West match it across all platforms? Forbidden West is gonna be huge, okay? So keep in mind, Zero Dawn sold way over 10 million units, and that was as a brand new IP, okay? That was a brand new IP. At the time, it was the fastest selling new IP ever for PlayStation Studios that has since been outpaced by Ghost of Tsushima. But worth noting that Ghost of Tsushima launched on a bigger install base than Horizon did, right? When Horizon launched, there was less PS4s out there than there were when Ghost launched. And then we've talked about on this chat before, Ghost also had a big advantage in Japan, where it really did incredible in sales, right? It outsold Horizon by quite a bit in Japan. So that also really helped its momentum. But Forbidden West is going to be huge. Absolutely. It's going to, at least at launch, crush the original. It's cross-gen, so it has that massive PS4 install base to launch on. It also is going to have a more built-up PS5 install base by the time it hits, because this is not going to be until a later in the year thing, right? September, I would say, at the earliest. Could even end up being like a November game, right? And especially if God of War is delayed. So I'm expecting a huge launch for Forbidden West. I don't know that it'll be the biggest launch ever for PlayStation Studios. Right now, that record goes to The Last of Us Part 2 at over 4 million. Not impossible, actually. I think it could get pretty close to that. 4 million in 3 days for The Last of Us. I am expecting 3 million plus for sure. I would be shocked if Forbidden West sells under 3 million in its first 3 days. I really think it's going to do that kind of numbers. It will be interesting to see if it can hit The Last of Us. But at the very least, I mean, it's going to be big, okay? It's going to be a very, very big launch. If it can match Valhalla, though, I mean, Valhalla across all systems is probably close to 10 million already, okay? Valhalla's been huge. So in units, Ubisoft mentioned on their conference call that I was on that it was second only in units to Assassin's Creed 3, which we know sold over 10 million units in a very short window. Valhalla has generated more money than Assassin's Creed 3 did in that time frame, but it is behind Assassin's Creed 3. So it's probably not quite at 10 million units yet, but it's probably not far away. So, you would have to think Forbidden West in order to match that. They're going to need to be hitting 10 million units in like 2 or 3 months. That is going to be tough, okay? So I would say overall, unlikely. I don't think it can match Valhalla across all platforms. No, I don't think so. I mean, Valhalla was huge. Some people, I think, haven't quite grasped how big that is. It did close to 10 million units in a matter of months. So that's just tough. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but that's tough. That's tough when you're an exclusive. I think I just saw 2 super chats drop, so let me hit those super chats really quick. We did. We have 2 super chats. All right. Ralph Muster, so good to see you, Ralph, with a super chat here saying Miitopia is coming to the Switch. Shall we expect more 3DS ports? Maybe in an attempt to fill the gaps between the launch of bigger games. This is a really good question, Ralph Muster. And one thing that I've wondered is if we will see Nintendo bring back some more of these DS or 3DS era IP. I don't know for sure that we'll see more like actual straight up ports of like 3DS games, but I have wondered if you'll ever see like a Nintendogs revival, right? I mean, it sounds silly, but Nintendogs and Nintendogs plus Cats or whatever, I mean, those were like big selling games, right? They were really, really big. Especially now that the install base of Switch has gotten so huge and it's also hit new demographics. So early on, the Switch install base was very, very focused around core gamers. There was casuals as well too, but a lot of the research that was coming out of NPD and such did point to it was pretty core people in those first couple years that were picking the console up. But Animal Crossing has really widened how many different types of people are buying Switches, right? A lot more younger people have got in with Animal Crossing, and also a lot more women have bought into the platform as well because of Animal Crossing. So something like Nintendogs would be interesting to see if they ever bring that back. It'd be interesting to see if we see another chance at Brain Age come back, because the Brain Age games were really big sellers back on the DS and stuff as well. So Ralph, I'm not 100% sure if we'll see more ports, but I wouldn't be shocked if you see Nintendo make a stab at some of those DS and 3DS type IP now that the Switch has really broadened its demographics. That's going to be an interesting thing to keep our eyes on. Joseki with a 5 super chat. Fire take, post-direct negativity is old Nintendo fans not liking Nintendo's new focus. Splatoon, Xenoblade, FE, etc. over F-Zero, Metroid, etc. Target audience shifted. Okay, so this is this is gonna be a interesting topic, okay? Because like I mentioned, I saw really wild diverging takes on Twitter in regards to this Nintendo Direct. I saw some fans very happy with what has shown, and I saw some people completely trashing it, saying this was a horrible Direct. Here, I don't think it was horrible by any means. I mean, that kind of take I don't really get. I could definitely see the take of, hey, these games did not appeal to me, because I'll be honest, out of that whole Direct, there was only like 3 games that I'm definitely 100% buying on Switch, right? Splatoon 3, I think, looked excellent. Like, I think it looked very good. It looked like a big jump visually as well. That's one thing that caught me off guard. I was like, Splatoon 3's graphics look like they took a big jump. Like, it looks way better, I think, than Splatoon 1 and 2 did. Splatoon 2 looked kind of similar to Splatoon 1. If people remember, that was kind of a big criticism of the game right when it first got revealed, was a lot of people were like, come on, this is Switch, this is new hardware, but it doesn't look that much better than Splatoon 1. Splatoon 3 to me looks much better visually. So I thought that looked great. I am going to get Skyward Sword HD day one. I never played Skyward Sword. I know that that is a game that has very mixed reception. A lot of people hate that game, but I've never played it, so I want to give that a shot. And then I'm also super interested in that Project Triangle game from Square Enix. So there was definitely some announcements I liked there, but there was also a lot of stuff that just didn't really appeal to me. But I don't think it was a terrible direct. I mean, there was a lot of stuff there. There was a lot of range of stuff there. I also, though, don't think it was a home run. I think coming in there, a lot of people wanted to see Zelda. I think that was honestly the biggest blow to the direct. Had we had this exact same direct, but they ended with a Breath of the Wild showcase, right? They showed everything identical to what they have, but they closed, instead of with Splatoon 3, you have Splatoon 3 there as well, but you show even a 1 minute or a minute and a half trailer of even just like cinematic trailer of Breath of the Wild 2. I think the feedback is much better, but we've been waiting so long to see that game. They announced that almost 2 years ago now, and we've had zero info since. Same thing can be said of Bayonetta. Same thing can be said of Metroid Prime. I think some people are just getting really upset and impatient waiting to see games that have been announced for years, and we've seen nothing on them. So I think that's honestly the main blowback. I think the main thing that people are getting upset about is like, where are these games? I mean, you announced Bayonetta 3 like how long ago now? Was that like 3 years ago, I think? They announced Metroid Prime 4. I mean, like 3 years ago. Yes, it did switch developers, but again, we've seen nothing. I think that's honestly the biggest issue. The biggest issue is some of these big Nintendo games that were announced, we've seen just nothing new on for years and years. And I think people are getting upset about that. But it wasn't, I don't think, a home run direct, but I also don't think it was terrible. But I get what you're saying, too. Some people are bitter that there's no F-Zero, that there's no Metroid, etc. I totally get it. All right, super chats are cleared. Let's go back to some free questions. Thank you, everyone, for the super chats. The Arkham Knight Hero saying, hey, Benjo, do you think Bethesda will make multi-platform games since after the purchase, it's still its own and not merged into Xbox Studios? So I get a Bethesda question every week. I did go into this in the last video, Arkham Knight Hero. Luckily, this deal is closing soon. Like, soon. It sounds like Microsoft will actually own Bethesda by the end of March. Like, done. Signed contract deals. That is the reporting that is out there. It sounds like we are almost done. So, one thing, Arkham Knight Hero, I think we will finally have an answer very soon. Very soon. I think by this summer, we're going to know what's the deal with Xbox exclusives in terms of Bethesda. Part 2, that means nothing. I saw a lot of misreporting out there saying, oh my goodness, and I'm not going to go as long-winded into this as I did as last week, but I know some people might be in chat that weren't here last week. So the fact that they're in their own subsidiary while they're doing this acquisition means absolutely nothing. It's all just done for legal purposes. Doesn't mean they're not under Xbox, and also does not mean that Phil Spencer's not in charge. So no, that is a misreporting thing. EA just did the exact same thing with Codemasters. Whenever they bought Codemasters, technically they are acquiring them under their own subsidiary within the company, but it's all done in terms of paperwork and legal mess stuff. It's basically done so you have more flexibility in terms of how you want to handle this and file things and stuff like that. It does not mean anything in regards to multi-platform or exclusives. So anyone that you see out there reporting that, they just don't understand what's actually going on in terms of the acquisition. So I'm not saying that doesn't mean that there's going to be multi-platform Bethesda games in the future. Not at all. I'm saying that in particular, that piece of info means zero. It literally has zero say in terms of whether the games are exclusive or not. It means nothing. Plastic Hearts Podcast saying, also just announced Bloober Team is working on a horror game with a very famous gaming publisher. What property publisher do you think it could be? So a lot of people are saying this could tie into Silent Hill. I'll be honest, despite knowing some stuff about what's going on with Silent Hill, I actually don't know about this element. So I don't know. Bloober Team could be working on Silent Hill. They're not working on what I know of. It ain't that. So, but if there's other stuff going on with Silent Hill, it could. Yeah, could be. Could be. So I don't know. Outside of that, you would have to think of some big horror IP, and what those would be. In fact, what are some big horror IP that aren't being used right now? I don't really know, right? They're not working on a Resident Evil game. Capcom does that all in-house. I don't think we'll ever see an Evil Within game again. Um, so that's a good question. It could be Silent Hill. Like I said, as far as I know, they have nothing to do with the Silent Hill info that I know about. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean anything that there might not be more going on there too. Forzathon is back. What is up, Forzathon? Yeah, I haven't seen you in a minute. You know who else I haven't seen in a minute? Benji's Tank Top. I hope Benji's Tank Top's okay, right? Remember Benji's Tank Top used to always be in like every chat. I have not seen Benji's Tank Top in a minute, so I hope they're doing well. Hello, Benji. What are you playing lately? I've been playing Rare Replay. This is a game that Xbox should definitely consider porting to the Switch. Yeah, this is fun. I don't really talk about what I'm playing much on the chats. I do a lot of that on Twitter, but current rotation, I just finished Control Ultimate Edition, got the Platinum Trophy. My goodness, I absolutely adore that game. It's so freaking good. The Ultimate Edition on PS5 was excellent. I'm sure it's just as good on the Series X. I did not play it on Xbox. I played it on PS5 because it was free with PS Plus. But shout out to Remedy. They did an excellent job. The ray tracing looks gorgeous. If you don't want to play it with ray tracing, there is a 60 FPS mode as well, which from what I understand runs great. The story, I mean, I just love that game. It's so freaking good. So I just finished that, got the Platinum Trophy. I'm playing Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury on Switch intermittently. I've beaten the first 2 worlds of that. Not levels, but like actual worlds. I've beaten the first 2 worlds of Super Mario 3D World. I'm still working on finishing Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. I'm pretty far in that game. I've put like 20 hours into it. And then I just started Yakuza Like a Dragon, and that game is phenomenal. I'm playing that on Xbox Series X. And wow, I'll tell you what, I'm someone that struggled to get into Yakuza. I played Zero. I tried playing Yakuza 0 twice, okay? I played it first on PlayStation 4 back when it very first came out. And while I liked the story stuff they were doing, I just could not get into it because I hated the gameplay. I just did not like the gameplay. And then, so I quit probably after like maybe 10 hours or something like that. Then when it came to Game Pass, I tried again, right? On Xbox One X, I tried to get into Yakuza 0 again. I downloaded it because that's the one that most people consider like their favorite. And again, I just failed to get into it. I got to literally the exact same part. I'm not kidding you. The exact same part of the game. And I just bailed. I was like, dude, I just don't like playing this. Like, I liked the story, but I did not like the combat or anything at all. I am loving Like a Dragon. So it's basically just a straight up JRPG now, right? The combat is a turn-based RPG style. There's a lot of stuff in there with RPG nods. They talk about Dragon Quest in it. I love it. I am literally blown away with Like a Dragon so far. It is so good. So yeah, that's the main stuff right now. And yeah, Rare Replay is great. That would be super successful on Switch. I don't know if Microsoft wants to do more ports to other platforms or not. But it would do very well. I mean, Rare Replay on Switch would be huge. It would sell so many copies. All right, Ryan Thompson. Was there any update whether or not EA will continue Anthem or not? So Ryan, what Jason Schreier said is that meeting has gone down, happened last week, but Jason said don't expect to hear any solid updates for a while, right? So we haven't gotten a finalized answer. We know EA executives took a look at it. We know that it trended, right? Anthem trended whenever this news came out. It was trending on Twitter. So clearly a lot of people still have interest in Anthem, regardless of how rough that game was when it came out. I mean, there's definitely clear signs that there are a lot of people still that want to see that game become something and succeed. So I would say there's definite interest there. It's just a matter of if EA thinks it's financially worth it or not, because we do know it's going to take a lot of work, right? Jason said that they're basically going to need to triple their development team size of what they have now to get there, right? So it's going to take an investment to do this. So no concrete answer yet, Ryan. We're still waiting, and Jason said it could be a little while before we publicly hear on if Anthem Next is going to happen or not. All right. Silence PP7. How do you see Xbox first-person shooter or FPS boost? Sorry, not first-person shooter. FPS boost coming along for backwards compatible games. And what OG Xbox and 360 games do you think would benefit most from the doubled/quadrupled FPS? Shout out to the Xbox backwards compatibility team. I mean, they are amazing. They are literally, here's the thing, whether you like Xbox or not, they are doing the most impressive job by far of any of the console manufacturers in terms of preserving games. I mean, it's just not even close. In terms of how many generations they support in terms of backwards compatibility, enhancements from auto HDR. Now they have things like they're doubling or quadrupling frame rates for older games. I mean, like I said, you can hate Xbox, but shout out to the backwards development team. They are just killing it in terms of game preservation and not only preserving games well, but also making them even better than when they originally released. In terms of what I think would benefit most, absolutely shooters that are running at 30 FPS. Any shooter that you could boost up to 60 FPS, that is going to be a massive difference. I would also say the same for any fighting games, but most fighting games usually run at 60 FPS anyways. But any of those, any shooting games, any fighting games, especially FPS, third person, it definitely helps to go up to 60 FPS as well. But I'll tell you what, 60 FPS makes a massive difference in a first person shooter, right? That's a game that's all about aim. It's all about accuracy. So those would be the ones. Any fighting games that aren't 60 FPS and any shooters, particularly first person shooters. Those are the ones I want to see get a 60 FPS or even 120 FPS boost. Justin T, do you think there will be an E3 this year? I'll tell you what, Justin, I think it's unlikely. And I think if there is an E3, it's going to be pretty low key. So we know they were asking 6 figures from publishers to be part of this. That's a lot of freaking money whenever you can just do it a lot cheaper yourself, right? Having your own thing that you have full control over. You know, asking for 6 figures just to be part of this, I mean, it's a lot of money. So good luck convincing publishers to do that. You might get a couple, right? There might be like some small low-key type E3, but I'm not expecting a massive one. We know they tried, but I don't see it going very well. I'll be surprised, Justin, if you see like a big, massive E3. I think it's going to be pretty darn low-key if there is one. I think I saw a super chat drop. Holy cow, I got like a beard hair that is messing with me here. Sorry. Franklin Clinton 98. So good to see you, Franklin, with a super chat. 5 super chat here saying, hello, Benji. We rarely talk about Doom Eternal, but do we know how well it did? It was my second favorite game last year after part 2. Doom Eternal did excellent, particularly on PC. Now, this game performed well on consoles as well. I remember whenever it came out, some people were like, wow, this should have ranked a lot higher on NPD. Again, Bethesda does not share digital. So that's one thing that people really need to keep in mind with NPD. A lot of times people make inaccurate opinions based off of sales ranking charts that lack digital. Now, NPD, there is a lot of games that have digital included, but there are some publishers that do not share that info, and that's going to make a massive difference in how you rank, okay? Nowadays, most AAA games are selling a minimum of 50% digital, and some of them are much higher than that. You're seeing games hit 60 or 70% digital. Nowadays, it's the exception, right? Not the norm if you sell under 50% digital. So looking at an NPD chart that doesn't include digital for some publishers, right? Some it does, but if that game's lacking it, I mean, here's the thing. If it's really high and still lacking digital, that's amazing, right? That is like amazing, okay? So in that case, if a game ranks at like, for example, let's talk about Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk 2077, its debut month in NPD, was number 2, and that was just physical. It had no digital, so no digital console sales and no digital PC sales. So actually, like, it's December was enormous launch. Now, we already had the number of 13 million sold, so obviously we already knew that. But even looking at the chart, holy geez, number 2, and that's only physical console sales, that's when you know there's a giant launch. So if a game ranks really high and it's lacking digital, holy crap, it did amazing, right? That's a prime example of that's also all the Nintendo games that are always in the top 10. None of those have digital on NPD. So you're like, geez, these are ranking top 10 every single month and they're physical only. It must be doing amazing. However, when a game doesn't rank high, but there's no digital there, you can't really draw a concrete opinion because digital is such a big chunk of the pie, okay? A prime example of that's like we just talked about earlier, Hitman 3 not charting for January NPD. Doesn't really mean much, okay? It really doesn't mean that much. Doom Eternal is a game that ranked well on NPD, but it wasn't like a ginormous, like incredible performance. However, it hit insane concurrent on Steam. It was over 100,000 concurrent users at launch, and we also know it was one of the best-selling games of the year on Steam. Whenever Steam put out its end-of-year sales charts, Doom Eternal was right up near the top. So, I mean, it sold gigantic on Steam, and it also sold very well on console. Bethesda also came out and stated it was the fastest-selling Doom game ever, right? Crushed 2016 in terms of launch sales. So, Doom Eternal did great. You're 100% going to get a third Doom game. Like, zero question. Zero question. There's going to be a Doom 3. Like, yeah, it did great. Did very, very good for them. I mean, really, Doom right now is Bethesda's third biggest IP. It's their third biggest. It's number 3. Elder Scrolls and Fallout are going to be your top 2, and then it's going to be Doom. So, I mean, that's pretty darn good, right? If Doom is like in your top 3 biggest IP, it's doing well. It's doing well. JCat just dropped a second super chat. Holy cow, JCat. I think that was your second super chat of the chat. Thank you so much, JCat. With a 5. From the Biglow 25, what do you think of reports of Stadia boss Phil Harrison partly blaming Microsoft/Zenimax acquisition reason for SG&E closing? So here's the thing about that, JCat. Here's some tea. Right here, let me pour a little tea for you in case you missed it. All right, we got that tea cooking up. You ready to take a sip? So anyone that doubted this report was true, Jade Raymond retweeted this story on Twitter. Why is that important? Jade Raymond was in charge of the stories, or in charge of the games over there. Okay, so that basically tells you it's true, right? I'm pretty sure I'm remembering this right. Let me double check this. I know she retweeted one of these articles. Let me pull this up again because I don't ever want to give people wrong info. I am pretty sure she retweeted this. Let's see. Oh, wow. I think she removed it. Yo, she did. Or maybe, let me see. Let me look at her likes. All right, it's gone. She retweeted or liked this at one point. I am pretty darn sure because I saw it pop up in my feed. At the very least, okay, there is definite evidence that this is true, okay? Definite evidence. So anyways, in regards to what I think it means, here's the thing. I think that, listen, Stadia is basically a failed experiment, right? It was already going out the door no matter what. And what this says to me, if that is true, if it is true that Phil Harrison is partly blaming Microsoft/Zenimax, I think they were headed in a bad direction no matter what. I think no matter what, this is truly an excuse, partial excuse, if it is true. But it tells me that they weren't in for the big investment, right? You're not in for the big investment. If the way you see the industry is, oh man, we lost one, right? This would only be one third-party publisher. It is a blow, but like if you're really in this for the long haul and you're really willing to invest, just because you lost Bethesda doesn't mean there's not a ton of other support you can still get for this platform. If you're really going to invest, you really believe in it, you're really in this for the long haul. I mean, and then there's also the report that 1 week before they closed the studios that Phil Harrison was like sending messages like, hey, we're doing great. We're doing great. Yeah, Dreamwalker said, oh yeah, I saw Jade Raymond retweet it too 100%. Yeah, she did. I just went through her thing and her likes and stuff, and it's gone. So she must have thought secondly of it, right? Maybe she didn't want to get too spicy on Twitter. But yeah, Dreamwalker, I thought I saw that. She definitely retweeted it. But yeah, I mean, this whole thing's a disaster, right? I mean, clearly it's a disaster. I feel bad for the teams. I mean, how are you telling them a week before you close down that you're making great progress? Great progress, team. 1 week later, we're going to lay you all off. I mean, come on. What are you doing? That's just, yeah, it's not good. It's not a good look at all. So, I mean, here's the thing. I think that was Microsoft buying Zenimax is probably a sign to them that, you know, the big players are going big, right? They're not playing games. There's too much money to be made in this business. So you're either all in on gaming or you're all out. I've basically been thinking that for a long time. You cannot be successful in the gaming industry at any level and half-ass it. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if you're the biggest giant publishers or someone small like me trying my darndest to break into the industry. You can't half-ass it. It is way too much competition, okay? It is so hard to find any way of breaking in, okay? And that is from the biggest companies to the smallest person. I've had a couple opportunities that fell on my feet where I thought I was going to break into the industry. I mean, I really thought that in just the last like 6 months, and every one of them has fallen through. Every single one of them's fallen through. Competition is stiff, whether that's trying to become a journalist, whether that's trying to be just a developer at a studio, whether that's trying to be a giant mega corporation making billions of dollars. You have to be all in, giving it your all. And if just a few little things are going to dissuade you, then yeah, get out, because you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. You have to pour everything you've got into it. Okay. Let's go to more free questions. We've been going for an hour. I've got about 15 minutes left. You guys know I like to go for like around an hour 15, hour and 20, and then I got to go to work. So I'm going to be a little picky on questions for the last 15 to 20 minutes. I do want to hit some Bungie ones, so I'm going to look through here and see if there's any Bungie. It is my thumbnail, so I like to make sure I get questions in regards to my thumbnails. So if anyone has a Bungie question, drop it into chat and I will hit it. Otherwise, I'm going to look through here and see if anyone's asked yet about Bungie. Otherwise, I'll just talk about it if no one has a question about it, because I do want to hit on it. I'm not saying the whole last 20 minutes is going to be Bungie, but it's a big story, guys. It's a big story. I'm not seeing any Bungie questions. Someone hit me with a Bungie question. Right down at the bottom. Whoever asks about Bungie, you're going to get your question answered. Okay. Right off here, we got Xbox Gorilla saying hi from Northern Ireland. What is up, Northern Ireland? I love seeing people from other countries in chat. It's my favorite thing. I love it. Seeing people from all over the world, it is amazing. Okay, so I'm going to give some thoughts really quick about this Bungie thing, and then I'm going to go back to some more questions because no one's really asking about it. Here's the thing. I just want to touch on one element of the whole Bungie thing because I am, like, on my tweet, I got a lot of questions about this. A lot of people asked, does this mean, like, because this is a seriously massive expansion, y'all. Like, it's not small. Bungie, to go this aggressive, they have big plans, okay? So here's a couple thoughts I have on Bungie really quick. I know not everyone's going to care about Bungie, but we're talking about one of the biggest studios in the world. Like they are. Bungie is one of the biggest studios, like independent teams, not counting necessarily first-party teams. But if you want to talk about an independent, not owned by any publisher, Bungie is going to be right near the top of the biggest studios in the world right now. So here's the thing. I see a lot of people ask, does this mean that they got investment from somebody, right? Does this mean that a publisher is talking about buying them or something like that? Here's what we know, okay? Back in 2018, NetEase invested $100 million into Bungie. Okay, $100 million. That's a lot of money. So we know back in 2018, at the very least, they got that cash influx. Another thing we know is that Destiny 2 and all of the expansions for Destiny 2 have all been put into Game Pass. Again, those Game Pass deals, those are not free. And to have the brand new Destiny 2 expansion day one as part of Game Pass, trust me, that was not cheap. Trust me on that. That was not cheap from Microsoft to sign that check. Destiny 2 is still a massive game. Whether people like it, whether people hate it, it is still literally almost every day in like the top 10 to 15 most played games on Steam by concurrent users, or at least top 20. It is like always, day in, day out. It is a top level game on Steam. It's also getting a huge amount of players on console still to this day. I mean, massive. I would guess that console is bigger than PC. So to have that day one, oh, hey, let's ban this dude. Hit you with that ban. You banned, homie. They got that ban. But yeah, that's big. That is big for them. So yeah, I don't know that they got a second investment or round of investment or anything like that. That would be, I don't know. That would be surprising to me. I don't think anyone's like out there trying to buy Bungie because I think they're super expensive. I know there was rumors that Microsoft was making an attempt to, but I think Bungie's really expensive, like really expensive. So, guys, don't get caught up on some random troll. Who cares? No one even knows who this guy is. Like no one knows, just some random loser. So, anyways, yeah, I don't know. I'd be surprised. I would be very surprised if you have like a massive cash influx coming from some other party that we don't know about. That would be surprising to me. I think it's really just the success of Destiny 2 continuing to be successful. I think it's, you know, that $100 million investment from NetEase. I think that Game Pass check was not small. So Bungie's just a studio right now that's in a good spot. So I don't think that they're getting outside investment in a major, massive way that we don't know about from, you know, a mysterious publishing partner. I don't think someone's trying to buy them. Clearly, the other big takeaway here is going to be that Destiny is far from done, right? Destiny is like nowhere near done, okay? They're still keeping a Destiny team and building a second team that's going to build a new IP. Luke Smith and Mark Noseworthy are still on Destiny. That says to me that they're going to continue support past 2022. 2022 is when we know the last known expansion comes out. But if they're going to keep going after that, this makes sense to have a whole team still dedicated to Destiny. I feel like if you were just going to focus on a new IP and you were kind of sunsetting Destiny into the past, I mean, 2022 is not that far away, right? It's next year. So you could really just kind of wrap up work on those and then shift everyone over to the new IP. But they said they're basically going to two studios, two teams, a new IP team and the Destiny team. So for Destiny fans, sounds to me like you're going to get a lot of support for years. All right. I'm going to pull out just a couple questions. I got to get out of here in the next 10. I think I saw a super chat, so let me hit that super chat. Benji with 5. More than 2 million concurrent viewers for the Nintendo Direct yesterday. Yeah, this is huge. Does Nintendo need to attend E3 with such huge numbers? No. I think it was the biggest Direct ever in views. I would have to go back and make sure that none of their E3 Directs were bigger than that. man, it's hard to remember, right? I mean, once you start talking about that, you're talking about years back in memory, and it's like, ooh, what was that concurrent number? I think though 2 million was the biggest Nintendo Direct ever. I don't recall one bigger than that. No, they don't need E3. That's the thing. Like that question earlier, are we going to get an E3 this year? Just seems unlikely to me, right? It just seems unlikely to me because the big studios don't need it. Okay. I hate to say that. I'm someone that would love to see E3 come back, but I don't know. I just don't think so. These publishers, look at how big the Sony PS5 showcase was in views. Look at how big this Nintendo Direct was in views. There's an argument that like smaller studios or smaller publishers really benefit from E3, but man, these big publishers, they just don't really need it. All right. Let's see. Let's plot just a couple more. Ooh, here's an interesting question from Highlander, actually. Very interesting. Highlander001. Benji-Sales, do you think Microsoft buying Zenimax will hurt sales of Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo on the PS5? Ooh, this is interesting, right? Because here's the thing. If you're like a PS5 owner, are you a little worried that if Ghostwire Tokyo and Deathloop get sequels, those will be Xbox only, right? I think that is one thing that, you'd be a little worried about. Would be, man, if I buy this game and there's a sequel, what if it doesn't come to PlayStation? So I could see that viewpoint. On the other hand, though, I mean, these are technically exclusive games for now, right? They're timed exclusive because these deals were all signed before the Zenimax acquisition. And also, they are early next-gen games. So, on the plus side, I feel like, hey, here's my thing. I think both these games, if they're good, are going to do okay. I don't think either one's going to be a massive seller. And this has been one of the consistent quote issues with Bethesda is they've been making very good, very creative, very bold games in a lot of ways. If you look at like the Wolfenstein games, if you look at the Dishonored games, if you look at, Prey, which was criminally underrated, but they have not had a ton of breakout massive sales successes lately, just like the last 5 years, outside of Elder Scrolls, Fallout, and Doom. Those three brands have really been carrying Bethesda. So my expectations personally anyways for Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo aren't super high. I am not expecting either one of these to be like gigantic sellers no matter what. Even if they're 10 out of 10 games, I hate to say it, I don't expect that. That doesn't mean I don't think they're going to sell well. I don't know. The Bethesda's games just haven't been able to hit that mass market appeal outside of a couple brands. So I'd love to see it. I don't think Microsoft buying ZeniMax in particular is going to hurt them because I think most of your casual gamers actually still don't really understand that. And I think even if they do understand that, they think of Bethesda as Elder Scrolls and Fallout, right? A lot of people probably have no idea that Deathloop and Ghostwire is the same publisher as Fallout and Elder Scrolls. I'm telling you, like when I say casual, I just mean your broad gamer that walks into a GameStop or a Walmart and buys a game. They don't know all these intricate details. So I don't think it'll have a huge negative impact. Overall, I'm not expecting these to be giant sellers regardless. You get what I'm getting at? All right. Biothin here had asked a very interesting question right down here at the bottom, saying Sony exclusive sales are 10 to 15% of console sales. Do you think this percentage will increase with PS5? I do think so, Biothin. We have seen a steady increase over the last few years on PlayStation exclusive sales, right? That really started to tick up towards like the middle of the PS4 generation, right? When God of War, Spider-Man, The Last of Us Part 2, like as these games, Ghost of Tsushima, etc. Like they really hit their stride, I feel like about halfway through the PlayStation 4 generation, maybe a little bit deeper, but right around that mark. And they have steadily increased in unit sales like per entry, right? I do think, Biotwin, that we are going to see that go up over time. I do think so, because I think Sony is really establishing now their brands, their teams as being really marquee, big industry events for the PlayStation fan base. One thing that does make it more of a challenge than, let's say, on Switch to hit really crazy high percentages of attaches on your first party is a ton of people buy PlayStation consoles just as third-party machines. And the same thing is true of Xbox. It's just the truth, right? A lot of people buy PlayStations or they buy Xboxes, whichever one, to play Madden, to play Call of Duty, to play Grand Theft Auto, right? I mean, these are the best-selling games. To play FIFA. Like, a lot of people buy their consoles basically just for that. They might pick up 1 or 2 exclusives from PlayStation or from Xbox, but a ton of people, tens of millions of people, as we clearly can see from the sales results, just buy these consoles to play those games and not to play God of War and not to play Halo, right? So I don't think you're ever going to see attach rates like the crazy percentages that Nintendo puts up, because here's the thing. It's like the exact opposite of PlayStation and Xbox. Most of the people that buy a Switch, they're literally buying it to play Nintendo games. Like, literally. It doesn't matter which one it is. It could be Pokemon, it could be Animal Crossing, it could be Mario, it could be Zelda. But you're buying a Switch to play Nintendo IP because they don't have the same level of third-party support. So if you're buying a Switch, you're buying it to play Nintendo games. The third-party stuff is more like the cherry on top of the sundae. Whereas the PlayStation and Xbox are a little bit more the reverse, right? A lot of people do buy them for their exclusives, but I mean, let's look at the best-selling PlayStation games, right? The best-selling PlayStation exclusives are like 20 million. There's over 100 million PS4s. So clearly, tons of people are buying PS4s that aren't playing those exclusive games. So I do think, Biothin, you're going to see it increase over time because Sony is really definitely establishing those brands. But I'm not ever expecting to see Nintendo-type attach rates ever. The only one that ever has come close, really, for Sony or Microsoft in terms of like a Nintendo-type attach rate was actually Halo on Xbox. Like, that's been the closest, and that was in the past, right? Not nowadays. But when you look at the type of stuff like Halo 3 was doing on 360 or Halo 1 and 2 on the original Xbox, those had insane attach rates. That's really it. You know, maybe that and maybe like Gran Turismo back in the day on like a PS2 or PS1. But even then, Gran Turismo wasn't as big of a chunk as like a Halo was. So, yeah. All right. I'm going to take 1 or 2 more. Let me scroll through these. 1 or 2 more and then I'm out. Christopher Peralta just saying, what up, Benji? No question. Just want to say hi. Hello, Christopher. I hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing good. Vyas here saying, some time ago, Gabe Newell said Valve has multiple games in development. Do you think these are non-VR games, or is Valve all in on VR? My guess would be the bulk is probably VR, to be honest with you. They're kind of all in on that. I mean, they literally have their own VR headset, right? And they had Half-Life Alyx, which really was mind-blowing if you've never gotten to experience it. Even if you don't like VR, I mean, it was crazy, right? So, but I do have a feeling they have something non-VR as well. But I would say if they have multiple games in development, my hunch is most are VR, and then maybe like, 1 or 2 non-VR projects. They probably have something cooking over there that's not VR related, but keep in mind, Valve has a personal investment in making sure VR, can become successful, considering they have their own Vive headset, right? So they're going to be invested in that long term. That's really part of the reason Half-Life Alyx existed. They thought they could do something very cool and creative with it, but also they wanted to prove a big AAA game can work and be very cool and successful on VR. So I suspect that's most of their games. Most of their games probably VR. And then another good question here from Vias. Do you think we will see Hellblade 2 gameplay this summer? The game started development in 2019, 2018, so 3 years should be more than enough for gameplay. Vias, I want to see some Xbox projects gameplay this year. Okay, we need to see some. Whether that's Fable, because that's also been in development for years, whether that's Hellblade 2, whether that's the next Forza, whatever, we need some gameplay. Most of these Xbox games that are coming up, we have seen zero gameplay. Zero, okay? So we need some. I definitely think, Vias, that Microsoft needs to have some gameplay ready to go. And they're not the only ones. I'm not trying to just bash Microsoft. You can say the same thing, honestly, about a lot of Sony games. We still have not seen Horizon gameplay. We've just seen like that cinematic. We haven't seen anything on God of War Ragnarok. So it's not just Microsoft, but I do feel like Microsoft announced so many far-off projects that did just seem like more like conceptual trailers. I want to see some gameplay from Microsoft Studios this year. They definitely need to show some stuff. Yes, I absolutely think so. All right. I'm going to do Split End just dropped a super chat. I'm going to do that super chat, and then I'm going to do one more, and then I'm out. Split End 89 with a 2 super chat, best mod in the business, saying, will Avengers next gen version give it a boost? I don't know. You know, the problem with Avengers is that its late game has almost no hook. I actually really enjoyed Avengers campaign. Like, I really liked it. I remember back when it came out, I was tweeting about that while I was playing it. I was like, man, I'm surprised the reviews are harsh. Like, this is a pretty darn good campaign. I like really enjoyed it. I thought they did an amazing job with Miss Marvel. Like, she was so good. Like, the voice actress, she did such a good job with her. But man, that end game is like, it has like no draw. So I actually do get why a lot of the reviews were negative, because man, it's a game that's kind of built to be a games as a service, and it didn't succeed on the games as a service portion, in my opinion. Like, my thought after beating it was, man, they should have taken that budget that they set aside for all of that games as a service stuff and instead used all of that pumped into the campaign to just make that even bigger and better. And I feel like this game would have reviewed way better. Because think about how much money they must have been spending for the online portions. I mean, a lot. I would not be surprised if that was at least half or more of the budget, was building out this games as a service element of it, okay? Because that was their like long-term plan. And if all of that was in campaign instead, it would have been like I feel like it could have been actually a pretty great game, because the campaign, even as it is, I feel like is solid. I don't know. I just don't know if that's going to give it a huge boost. I think you will see some people buy into it, especially if it goes down to a cheaper price, just to experience that campaign. The Marvel brand is massive, as we know. Look at how big WandaVision is, right? I mean, WandaVision right now is the most watched show in the world, according to reports. Not of all time, but like currently. WandaVision is like the most popular show there is worldwide. So Marvel's huge. So I could see some people buying into the next gen version at discounts just to experience that campaign. But I don't know. I feel like just taking that game as a games as a service direction was an overall miss. Like, so I don't know that you're going to just see it become massively successful all of a sudden. Okay, I'm about to bounce. Red Dead series, we're going to end with this saying, I'm still salty Elder Scrolls won't come to PlayStation LMAO. First of all, it's great to see you, Red Dead series. You're always here. You're always so supportive. I would say don't rule it out yet. We don't know for sure, Red Dead series. My personal inclination is, yes, you're right, that Elder Scrolls probably is not going to be multi-platform. It will be on PC no matter what, right? All of these Bethesda games will definitely be on PC. But my personal thought is that they're probably not going to PlayStation, considering you spent $7 billion. I mean, if you just wanted to lock in a couple exclusive games, it would have been a lot cheaper to do that than buy a whole publisher, right? I feel like if you're going to buy a whole publisher, I mean, aren't you going to use that to bulk up your own first party, like studios? Like, these are our games, not multi-platform. Like, if you just wanted one or two exclusives, It'd be way cheaper to just be like, hey, Bethesda, here's a check, give us something exclusive, just like Sony did with Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo, right? If you're going to go out and buy an entire freaking publisher, I feel like you have a long-term investment in that into making your brand bigger. So Red Dead, I do think that they're probably not going to be multi-platform, but we don't know. We do not know. Hopefully we know very soon. Bethesda deal should be locked in by the end of March, it's looking like. So hopefully no matter what, we're going to have that answer soon. Okay, everyone. Thank you for another chat. Thank you for another amazing chat. Make sure you hit that like button if you like doing these chats, if you like being part of them every week. The likes help the algorithm, so make sure you hit that like button. Also, click subscribe if you have not subscribed yet, so that way you get notifications as soon as the streams are going live and all of that goodness. We're pushing for 3K. I'm pretty much stalled out at 2.7. Hasn't really gone up, hasn't really gone down. It's just stalled out right at 2.7. So hopefully we hit 3K soon. My hope originally was we were going to hit 3,000 by the end of January, but didn't happen, right? My YouTube just grows way slower than my Twitter account. But make sure to let people know, everyone. It's great seeing y'all. Have a great day. Stay safe. Play some games, and I will see you all either on Twitter or over here in the next YouTube live stream. Thanks for the super chats, everyone. Bye. Have a great day. Bye. Bye, bye, bye.